us for today's webinar. Sorry, thank you. Now, this is the second in a series on broadband equity access and deployment, or BEAD, funding for Wisconsin counties and tribes. My name is Chris Stark, Digital Equity Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin Extension, and I will serve as your facilitator for today's session. I'd like to recognize my Extension colleagues who will be working behind the scenes to ensure our session runs smoothly. That's Brandon Hofstedt, Community Economic Development Program Manager, Kristen Runge, Communication Research Specialist, and Jessica Beckendorf, Digital Equity Facilitation Specialist. They'll be monitoring the waiting room and facilitate questions through the chat. This webinar is being co-sponsored by the UW Extension Community Economic Development Program, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Office of Rural Prosperity, and the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin Broadband Office. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Today's meeting is being recorded, and the final video, along with the PowerPoints from the session, will be posted on the Extension Community Economic Development website. It might be a good idea if somebody could place that in the chat, please. The webinar had a closed captioning option if needed, at the bottom of your screen for that, for closed caption. As a friendly reminder, here we go. As a friendly reminder, please be sure to mute your microphones when not speaking. If you would have questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop your questions or comments into the chat. You may send a private chat to either myself or Brandon Hofstedt or Jessica Beckendorf. This webinar is the second of 3 virtual webinars Extension will be co-sponsoring with the PSC focused on broadband equity access and deployment, the BEAD planning for Wisconsin counties and tribes. During today's session, we'll highlight technical assistance that is being developed to help counties and tribes with the BEAD planning process, and discuss next steps for those counties, tribes, and regional economic development organizations electing. Let me deal with the technical issue here. Sorry for that. The BEAD planning process and regional economic development organizations electing to participate in the BEAD planning grant. Although broadband planning is critical at a local level, broadband infrastructure doesn't stop at the county or tribal boundaries. There are advantages to examining broadband needs and developing local, regional, and statewide plans to ensure the best use of resources. Today's 3 presenting organizations are working closely to develop and share technical assistance throughout the BEAD planning process. We recognize that each of you is at a different stage in the planning process and will require different assistance. The PSC will be requesting planning status reports by this summer 2023, to incorporate into the state's BEAD plan, but county and tribal technical assistance will continue for 2 years. We want to ensure folks there is no wrong door for seeking technical assistance, and together our organizations will work to help you gather the resources you need. Our first presenter today will be Danielle Jones from WEDC, who will describe what WEDC and the redos, which when we say redos, we banter these terms around, it means the regional economic development organizations, are envisioning for technical assistance at a regional level. So to introduce Danielle Jones now. Danielle is the Director of Rural Initiatives at the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. She has been with WEDC and its predecessor for over 10 years, and during this time, she had the largest portfolio of industry sectors due to her ability to quickly evaluate industries and collaboratively identify solutions for them. Industries that had been in her portfolio are close to the hearts of rural communities, including telecommunications and forest products. Prior to working for WEDC and when it was the Department of Commerce, she worked in account management and sales in the insurance industry and in technology-focused areas, including software, technology, and agricultural research and development. She is excited to bring the expertise and experience in industry analysis and solution development skill sets developed and honed across a 30-year career to rural communities to assist them with the issues dearest to their hearts. In her free time, she is an avid traveler, and I give you Danielle Jones. Danny, if you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. Really thrilled to be here today and to share a little bit about what we are hoping to provide for regional planning technical assistance. Jessica, can I get the next slide, please? So in WEDC, we have our Office of Rural Prosperity, and our Office of Rural Prosperity seeks to foster vibrant, prosperous, and resilient rural communities across Wisconsin. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, we can go back just one. So what I'll be covering with you today are the Office of Rural Prosperity deliverables with our partnership with the Public Service Commission and with the Division of Extension, and then provide an overview of the regional planning assistance that we are anticipating giving going forward. Next slide. Thank you. So one of our first deliverables within the Office of Rural Prosperity is the GEO Partners one-year contract extension. We are currently working with North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission on that contract. The contract extension for the GEO Partners software will go to the end of calendar year 2023, at least that's what is planned currently. The software provides a statewide speed testing and mapping, and it provides it at a granular address level so that, and it's in a real-time mapping, and so it will hopefully give some more granularity to the information that we have as far as that mapping is concerned. We are anticipating the contract to be finalized within the next several weeks. It's currently within WEDC and going through our process, so we'll hopefully have something to announce in short order. Next slide, please. So our second deliverable is regional technical assistance. We are currently convening meetings with the regional economic development organizations and our regional planning commission partners. What we're trying to understand from at this point to make sure that the technical assistance that we provide is of benefit to them is what are the regional challenges that they're facing when it comes to broadband deployment? What types of technical assistance could they use? What are the current knowledge gaps that they are facing when it comes to planning and when it comes to broadband? And then to gather from them as well, what has been some of the successful opportunities, initiatives that they are aware of to date? And we're hoping to provide all of that to the broader community. So taking things that might work in one region and seeing if it can work in another region. As we all know, broadband does not stop at the county line. Next slide, please. So we're also going to be providing toolkits. Now the toolkits are actually shared with the Division of Extension. So we're each doing work on them. We're not duplicating work, but what we're doing is we're creating these toolkits that are going to be really all inclusive. And in these toolkits, we're hoping to provide some information on the process for broadband deployment. We're hopefully providing some templates that will assist regions as well as the counties. We're trying to pull together the best practices and case studies. These can be best practices in the state, best practices out of the state, and the case studies that we've identified. We're also hoping to have some FAQs as well to share with our regional partners. We're going to provide some contact information for the providers. So we're hoping that it really provides discrete individuals that people can contact as they're going through their planning process for broadband. We're hoping to provide information sheets, so around funding and financing, and maybe some information around the state statutes and what those could potentially mean. And then we're really looking at innovative ideas that we can share, and we're gathering them from all over the place. Next slide, please. So those are our three deliverables, and in those, as I said, we're kind of looking at these different opportunities of what we can provide and what we're hoping to provide. So we're still in development and trying to understand what our regional partners, the RPCs and the REDUs, need and what they need to understand. And as we're developing those, we're kind of finalizing our list on the technical assistance. So some of the activities that we're looking around planning specifically, again, information on the broadband deployment process. We're looking at, helping people identify who are the partners to bring in when they start doing their planning, whether they're engaging in housing, roads, or business parks. An example would be bringing in those providers at the get-go so they can start seeing what is that plan going forward so that they can plan as well. And then we also want to provide examples of how to align broadband with major economic development activities or plans, and that will engage those providers. Examples include, workforce attraction issues. So that actually helps to show a provider that there is going to be a customer growth base and helping them then to plan for this potential growth base. Business attraction activities. If you have a big anchor institution coming in, that is also an opportunity that we can plan around and see, is there an opportunity that we can maybe build off of that? Maximizing dig once policies. That's one of the things that we've talked about a lot in broadband is, if you're going to be digging, how to engage the provider, get them in there so that when you dig, you're only digging that one time. And then how to leverage the broadband forward and telecommuter forward certifications within the planning process as well. Next slide. Thank you. Around planning when it comes to data. So, we look at the data as being an opportunity to leverage those resources jointly to create a bigger pool or a bigger customer base that will create the ROI for providers. And so we're hoping to provide some examples of what has worked. We're hoping to provide examples on, what the data you need to gather and maybe how to pay for it as well. For example, unserved areas, where are they? How to make sure that you're mapping that. Speed tests, making sure that you've got adequate speeds for the needs of the people in your communities and in your regions. Affordability, how to identify, how to gather that information on affordability, and then identifying those unserved and underserved areas and the areas that are adjacent to other communities, counties, or regions. That all can be filtered in, and so we're hoping to provide some assistance around that. We also want to share some knowledge on the types of service. And so an example would be, satellite versus Starlink. As everybody knows, Starlink is a satellite, but kind of understanding some of those options and what they can do. And then we'd also like to share some information on who the providers are across county lines and across regions. Who are those incumbent providers? And then who are those adjacent incumbent providers that are there? And then on top of that, we also want to provide, like I said before, some of the information on the state statutes. We won't be diving into exactly what they say, but we'll be providing information on the statute itself. Next slide, please. Thank you. On financing and funding. So we're really hoping to share, what funds are available for communities and maybe even share some novel ideas for how other states are kind of taking some of their funding and expanding it, what other regions within the state of Wisconsin have done, or other communities, just to kind of provide some ideas for our regions to work with on as they're coming together and they're doing their broadband planning. We're hoping to provide a lot of those case studies and best practices that I've mentioned. What have other communities done? What potentially have other states done that could actually work in the state of Wisconsin? And then we're also looking at, the assistance and information on sustainability plans. So an example that I have is, we're currently have the geo partners mapping that will be a WEDC contract, but then what are some opportunities to make sure that you can continue that going forward? Are there opportunities to kind of plan for that and put that into your plan so that you can continue to do the mapping as you continue to do your broadband deployments? And then recommendations on how to leverage the partnerships to increase the return on investment or to increase funding opportunities across a regional aspect. Next slide, please. And then on broadband in general, we're hoping to provide some recommendations on talking points for stakeholders across the regional level. How can you, help engage the communities? How can you help the regions participate? What are those things that are the best way to approach, the providers, to approach the communities, to approach people who might have some funding opportunities? And then ideas for some nonlinear solutions. An example that I've talked about was, is talking about service in one location and maybe finding a way to increase, a take rate in another location. So what are some of those things that have worked in other communities, other states, and bring those to the table? But saying with all of that, these are what we're hoping to do. And so we're really going to be reaching out to our RPC and Redo partners to ask them, what are they looking for? Are there things that are not in here that they are saying, we really could use that, we really want that, or we need this information, and then we can incorporate that in. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be finalizing those meetings, getting to talk to them, and then kind of moving forward, and we'll be doing that in a very collaborative way. So that's kind of the overview that we have on what we're going to be providing as far as planning assistance, and we're really hoping that we'll hear from more people as we're going through this process. Like I said, we're definitely doing this in partnership with the Division of Extension and the Public Service Commission. So there'll be a lot of pieces that we're going to be working on individually and pulling together for one big toolkit. And you'll see some of that information across the breadth of it. So we're excited about doing this, and we're excited to see where we're going to go from here. Thank you.
Chris, you're muted.
Thank you, Danielle, and much appreciated. And if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. And for now, we're going to try to hold them to the end so we can move on with our next presenter. And our next presenter will be Gail Hike from UW Extension. Gail will highlight BEAD, technical assistance to be offered by Extension's Community Development Institute. Gail Hike is a professor of practice with the University of Wisconsin Extension, where she serves as a broadband specialist. Gail has 39 years of experience in delivering community outreach programs in family and community economic development. She joined the Broadband Education Center in 2015, serving as director for the Connected Aging Communities Initiative. Connected Aging Communities is a groundbreaking initiative that uses a unique high-tech, high-touch, holistic community development approach to enable aging residents to live independently at home. Gail's current broadband efforts center heavily on community planning for broadband access. She's a member of the National Digital Extension Education Team and has played a key role in the development of broadband community planning curriculum, training extension staff at a national level. Gail has developed training materials for the National 4-H Council's Tech Changemakers Digital Ambassador Program on digital inclusion. Over the last 2 years, Gail has served as a member of the Wisconsin Governor's Task Force on Broadband. And Gail, all yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I think Jessica's starting the screen here. There we go.
Yeah. All right, what I think has happened is that Gail we had.
All right, just like that, I zoomed out.
You got it?
Hopefully-
Okay, I'll get you then.
I'm gonna
You're on
stop
here.
sharing my picture, so maybe that will help.
Do that. And this highlights, ladies and gentlemen, the need for better broadband throughout the state. Thank you.
Yeah, never fails. Well, thanks for letting me speak today. I do want to talk a little bit about Extension's role in the BEAD technical assistance. Like Danielle said, this is a joint effort. And as WEDC highlighted some of the things they're anticipating they might do, these are some of the things that Extension is anticipating that you will see from us in the next 2 years. Next one, please. As you can see, we are part of UW-Madison, the Division of Extension. The unit that is concentrating on the technical assistance is one of our 6 institutes across the state. The Community Development Institute is where the BEAD planning sits, and they will take the major role. But as we work in getting this message across, doing digital equity and starting to bring in digital literacy, you will start to see members from our other institutes joining our team. Next one, please. Our role in broadband, Extension utilizes good community development practices to equip and empower communities to make changes and improve quality of life. And right now, broadband is the topic we're working on. But really what we're doing is using those strong community development practices to help communities. Our niche has been our long history of being embedded in communities, being that trusted partner. So we bring not only the research and resources to the community, but we'll often act as that network weaver to help build capacity. One of the other things that we have is broadband access and digital equity will cross across all of our institutes and program areas. So we have those connections at a county level to reach all of the different groups that may be within a county or region. Next one, Chris, or Jessica, excuse me. Why plan? I think that's one of the things we're getting a lot of questions about, especially from folks who maybe weren't, counties and tribes who weren't in the broadband business before. Maybe it wasn't something they thought was on their horizon, and are now being bombarded by, what are you doing in broadband? And I think why get involved? a big part is that new federal funding for infrastructure and adoption. This is a once in a generation opportunity for folks to access some of those dollars to really achieve some transformational change. Funding for programs, what we find, favor community developed plans that leverage both public and private resources. And we want to help folks develop those plans and those relationships that are going to make accessing those resources easier. We want to help take advantage of best practices and decision-making tools and resources developed by business, government, nonprofit. And planning ensures future-proof comprehensive solutions that best meet the need for affordable and reliable high-speed internet. I think foolproof, trying to get things that are going to take us into the future is really why we want to do some of this planning. Next one, please. This slide you probably recognize was taken from one of the PSC's presentations before, and it really highlights some of the work that Public Service Commission and WEDC had done with some of their pilots looking at technical assistance. And what we found was technical assistance is one of the things that folks are saying they really need. In their short window of applications, you can, I think, was it a week and a half, less than 2 weeks? All the what was it, Daniel? I think in that short period of time, you can see all those applications that came in. And those applications really fell into 3 categories. The entry level, those who are just getting started and may have an established group, and have started to explore and do a little bit of planning. Those in the middle that maybe have developed a network and established a plan and had maybe some success on finding some funding to do some build out. And then those who are maybe more advanced and looking for more specific resources on accessing federal funds. What we want folks to know is it's all right no matter where you're at in the tier process. Our organizations are working together to help take you where you're at. So there's no wrong place to be right now. Next one. Extension actually has 3 subcontracts with the PSC right now. There's the Broadband Comprehensive Survey that we'll be working with that'll be going to counties and tribes. The BEAD technical assistance, which we're going to concentrate on today. And then we also have a digital equity and inclusion subcontract. Even though we're not going to spend a lot of time on digital equity and inclusion, I hope what you'll see is we're trying to incorporate that digital equity and inclusion into all sections of the things that we're bringing to the table. Next one. So the first one we want to take a look at is the comprehensive survey. The deliverables that Extension has for the survey is we're working with the Public Service Commission to design the survey. The survey will take a look at the things that counties and tribes are doing now as far as broadband, some of the things that your priorities on what you want for the future, and some of the needs that you have. We're expecting our surveys to be distributed March or April. We're working right now with UW River Falls, who's putting it in a Quiltrax format. Kristen Runge is taking the lead on this with Brandon and Chris and I, and Melissa Kono are also working on the team to help develop those surveys. But distribution will happen in March or April. We'll be serving as a point to encourage the survey completion. We hope to help counties and tribes expand their thinking beyond infrastructure into equity issues. You're going to find there'll be a number of equity questions and digital literacy questions that are on that survey. The survey, as we're working with that, we hope to link government bodies to others working in the space. We're going to ask you to do a little bit of research, check what's happening in your community. And it may not be the county government or the tribal government who's taking the lead. It may be economic development, it may be community organizations. And so we're going to help hopefully encourage you to link to others to find out what's happening in your locale. And we'll also serve as a broadband resource to those as they're completing their surveys. Next one. What we hope opportunities for our counties and tribes are to participate in that process. Your opportunity would be to assess your local status. I think that's one of the things that we want to take a look at is we're going to be asking you to take an assessment of what's happening in your area. So it'll be a good place for you to start as you work on your planning to evaluate what needs attention and look at who's already working in that space. Opportunity to impact our state broadband plan. I think the PSC is very interested in taking all these surveys, the information you provide back. The surveys we'll send out in March or April. The first ones that'll go out will be to the counties, and probably the same format that happened last time will go to the county executive, administrator, or coordinator. But we'll also send out lots of notifications to county board folks, articles and different publications. The Wisconsin Counties Association magazine will have one. And so we'll get that information out to everyone. And then the tribal survey will follow shortly after that. Opportunity to inform the state partners about assets, barriers, and opportunities. This is where we really want to hear what you have to say. Some of the things you tell us here are going to help shape those resources that Danny and I are talking about. The toolkits, the workshops, all of those types of things that we bring to you. We hope to design them around your needs. And then we understand that doing this is going to take some time and some resources in order to complete those surveys. And the Public Service Commission is worked out that they'll be able to do a reimbursement for some of that time and resources. So you'll get more information on that as the surveys come out. And that will be an electronic survey that will come, is being put in Quiltrex. Okay, next one. Our toolkit, as Danielle said, the toolkit will be hosting a toolkit on Extension's community development website. We'll also be sharing information with the Public Service Commission, WEC. Our goal is not to duplicate services, but also have links that we can share things back and forth, because we know that the tools that are being developed, the case studies that are being documented are things that everyone will be able to benefit from. So we want to make the best use of all of our time and resources by sharing back and forth, working together. Some of the topics that we're looking at covering, you can see there, and those are just suggested. That's some of the things we anticipate doing. Those things we anticipate will be in various formats. We'll have some templates for you. We'll have some case studies, some FAQs, fact sheets, publications, some videos, some PowerPoints. Know that nothing is locked in stone. We're kind of developing based on your need. So we encourage folks to reach out, share those needs on your survey, share those needs with any of our organizations as we're working through, share them as we're doing these webinars. We want to hear what you need. Next. Then we also will have virtual training workshops that we'll be working on delivering. The topics, we'll be doing those. We were scheduled as part of our deliverables to do those quarterly in 2023 and 2024. Those will be based on toolkit materials, BEAD activities. You'll note that we've been doing one of these a month. We have 3 scheduled on the planning grant process and resources. So the next one will be actually April 3rd. We'll have time where we discuss the survey on one, different funding opportunities. Needs identified, again, we'll use those needs that you've identified from surveys, trainings, and requests to help dictate what the content area for those surveys are. Another thing that we hope to highlight will be new research. One of the things that Extension is working on right now, and it's in the analysis stage, is we've conducted a survey on broadband willingness to pay. And so that's being analyzed right now. We should have some rough things that we can share in a month or so with the final report by June. And then at least one workshop per year. The main focus will be on digital equity and inclusion. Next one, please. And the third and last major deliverable that we have in the BEAD planning will be to host regional workshops. We're looking at holding these in 4 locations throughout the state, with a 5th workshop geared specifically towards tribes. And we'll hold those series in 2003 and in 2004. And this will be an opportunity for us to bring local teams together. So you get a chance to learn from best practices, get introduced to some of our resources, have time to network with communities and some of the agencies and organizations. And we hope to bring in the internet service providers in that region, so we can kind of have a meet and greet and be able to have discussions with those internet service providers. Okay, next. And then opportunities that we see for technical assistance, opportunities that we hope tribes and counties realize is you get the technical assistance you need regardless of where you're at. You learn from others. We hope that you develop some partnerships at the local and regional level, increase your options and relations with providers, create some sustainably locally driven plans. And this is a great opportunity for folks to look at. Do you have your own broadband plan? Is your broadband plan part of your county comprehensive plan? And how does that fit with your SEDS? So we're looking to, hopefully this will help you position yourself for some good funding opportunities and enhance economic development and workforce opportunities, and enhance and expand residents' access to health, education, government, financial institutions, and services. Okay. Next, and that's all I have, Chris.
All right, thank you, Gail, for sharing Extension's role with the BEAD planning process. And again, please continue to put your questions in the chat here. But our last presentation for today will come from the Public Service Commission Broadband Office, and that will be Rory Tukalski. Rory is manager of the Wisconsin Broadband Office and is responsible for overseeing grant making, outreach, mapping, and planning efforts to make high-speed internet accessible and affordable for all Wisconsinites. Rory has a Master of Public Administration from the Maxwell School at Syracuse and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Prior to joining the Wisconsin Broadband Office, Rory worked in budget management and policy development for the Wisconsin legislature. So Rory, all yours.
Thanks, Chris. We are not going to present that much today, but I did want to just step in and give some updates of where we're at and where we're trying to go next in terms of our BEAD local planning grant program and all the other things going on at the broadband office. So I'll start right now. I did see a couple of questions in chat. I think the goal is once I'm done giving this little update, we'll take questions from any and all angles in our presentation. But before we do that, I will say here, if you can see my screen, here is a map as of, I want to say about 4 p.m. Friday of where we're at in terms of county participation in the local planning grant program. So I think this map was maybe 48 counties have opted in either in a regional or independent manner. I was updating it as other folks were presenting. I think we're now up to about 55, 56 counties. So really getting into the final stretch, folks are really getting involved in getting those opt-in forms. Our goal is everybody to participate, and we have yet to have someone tell us, no, thanks, we're out. So we're still on track for 72 counties. The deadline is tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. to get that form filled out and sent to us. If you're a gray county on here, maybe you already submitted it in the last day or so or over the weekend, but we'd love to hear from you and make sure that you can get involved. If you have questions, concerns, issues, uploading or filling out the form, anything at all, please get in contact with us and let us know. Jaron, I think he's on here on this call. Me, Alyssa, anybody on our team is happy to help field those questions and get you some results. So right now we're at about 55, 56 counties. Our goal is by tomorrow we'll get to 70 or 72. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on the back end in our team kind of doing some formula and some back end work to run that allocation formula and kind of end up with the final dollar amount for each county and each regional economic development organization that participates. Our hope is that probably within the week, probably by the end of next week, we'll be able to put out a letter kind of establishing that formal allocation and how much each county is going to get. And then we will be working with you all individually or with your redo for all counties operating independently and all redos to get a grant agreement signed, put together a budget, kind of start those next steps to get the money in your hands and get you out in the field and ready to do some work. So at a high level, please, if you have not responded yet, we've got about a day left. We're happy to help you resolve that. We'll get you an allocation and kind of a formal announcement of the allocation by the end of next week, likely. And then from there, we'll be doing grant agreements, which is kind of the formal award of funding and kind of setting up budgets and deciding how you're going to spend your money and get you to work. If you want a head start on some of those budget and grant agreement type steps, I'll drop the link in chat. We have some guidance resources on our website. There's a guidance document about general allowable activities, general expenditures, things like that can be helpful. And then there's also a draft of the grant agreement. So if you want to get a head start working with your legal team, making sure everything looks okay and is reasonable, you can take a look at that draft grant agreement and get a head start there as well. So that's where we're at right now, Chris. I know we've got some questions coming in here, but I just want to say as a last thing, if you want to stay up to date, you want to know when that allocation letter comes out or any other guidance documents or things, please subscribe to our BEAD mailing list. It's just an email mailing list you can sign up for, and we can make sure all the latest updates are coming out through there. So that's all I have, Chris. And I do see one or two questions in the chat here, particular to what I was saying. Oh, some counties are bragging that they did get their forms in after this map. So my map was wrong. I'm sorry, but we're glad to have you join us. Thank you.
Sounds great, Rory. And let's open it up to those questions. So Jessica or Brandon, can I ask, do you have some questions? Do you want to lead us off with it?
Sure. I'll go right to the top. This is from Chris Hardy, and the question is estimated timelines on when these regional meetings might be scheduled. So this is from earlier in the presentation.
Yep. So those meetings are currently being scheduled if they're not already scheduled. So I anticipate that they will be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So Chris, I believe you should have an invitation already for one of those meetings.
Great. And this is going to go right back to you, Danny. This is from Barbara. What is WADC's Office of Rural Prosperity's timeline for completion of these resources?
So we're hoping that they will be done towards the fall. I believe that there will be some elements that will probably be done earlier, but again, we're working in partnership with the Division of Extension. So we will hopefully have a toolkit jointly able to be presented towards the end of the summer, I would say. Again, it's going to be really contingent upon understanding what the regions need. So that would be both the RPCs from the planning perspective and the redos from the economic development perspective. So we will continue to update you as timelines progress as we move forward. The GeoPartners deliverable, that's going to be contingent upon WEDC's underwriting and contracting process. So that will be a few weeks still, but we're hoping to have that done sooner rather than later.
Brandon, you can certainly keep them coming, or Jessica, if you have.
I didn't know, Gail, did you want to add anything, or maybe you're just anticipating the next question, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is in reference to UW Extension and PSC survey. So the intended audience, and then our county is expected to pay for the out of their BEAD allocation. So you want to take that?
No, the intended audience for the survey, we are sending the surveys to counties and tribes. So we're hoping we get a return survey from each of the 72 counties and each of our tribes. This survey will probably use the same format that the Public Service Commission used for distribution. So the main survey will be sent directly to the county executives, administrators, or coordinators, and the chairman or the president of the tribe. And so that's who the initial contact will go to, but we will be doing promotions for that. Even though they're going to be the main contact that the initial will be sent to, we recognize. I think I'm locked.
You're back now, Gail. I don't know if you want to turn your video.
Okay.
Can you gist of it? So you got the main points across. If you.
All right.
I will add on top of what Gail said. One thing we've been sneakily doing while we've compiled all these opt-in forms is getting some names and contact information of somebody in each county or each redo who can kind of be our coordinator and our partner on the ground in any given area. And so those county surveys, if you were the person who was on that opt-in form as kind of a primary contact, we'll be making sure that you also get a copy of that information when it goes out.
Right, and we hope that folks will work together with everyone in your county. And we know one person isn't going to have all the answers. It's going to take you to go to your planning department, those local organizations. In some counties, the economic development may be taking the lead. So it's going to take a teamwork to make those surveys happen. Brandon, I think there was a question about costs.
Yeah, so no, this will not be coming out of BEAD portions. As a matter of fact, counties and tribes and stakeholder groups will be incentivized to participate. So more information pending on that, but yes, there is no expense. And we realize that the request for the time to be able to get this, to pull this information together may be a little bit more than a normal survey. And therefore counties will be compensated for their time.
Yes, absolutely. It's quite the opposite. Actually, we're going to try and cover your costs rather than make you incur more costs.
Perfect. Pat Malone had asked, and it looks like Kristen responded, but I don't know if Kristen, if you want to say anything, did you go beyond the willingness to pay and look at ability to pay for the upcoming survey?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. We did. We asked ability to pay, willingness to pay, and then a couple of other questions on kind of attitudes toward broadband and broadband expansion that'll help shape our understanding of how the public feels. But yeah, those are two sides to the same coin. It's not just your willingness to pay, it's also your ability to pay that will affect our uptake rates among our customers, potential customers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen. This is from Barry West. Is UW Extension the UW Extension portion in addition to the redo organizations or instead of?
And I would say there's no right or wrong answer. We're working together with the redos, and we want to make sure that it's in addition to. Folks are welcome to come to and work with both entities. We're sharing resources, and we'd love to have you as we schedule those regional workshops or on any of our virtual workshops.
Question about ISPs from Lucas. How can we make sure that all ISPs in the area are included in these workshops and are not just incumbents?
I think that's a real important part. We encourage folks to look at your incumbents, but also look at, I always say, look at who else is around you. We want to encourage competition. We'll be working with the state association to make sure we look at all the folks in that area. We'll be working with the Public Service Commission and WADC to make sure we extend invitations to all the providers. We hope to do a kind of a meet and greet, but also before we do that meet and greet, we also want to give counties and tribes a list of questions that they might consider before they meet with them. To how do you meet your needs? What kinds of questions do you have? So we're really developing true partnerships. I know one group that I've worked with interviewed 7 different ISPs before they decided on their current plan. So I think that's important, and we do want to include as many as possible.
The other question, it looks like Alyssa had responded to it, but do tribes have till March 14th? And the answer is yes. And Rory, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth emphasizing tribal members, tribal nations are also welcome to participate in this BEAD local planning effort. We're giving them just an extra week to get their opt-in forms in, just because we had some details and haggling on the back end to get that information sent out to them. So if you work with a tribal member or you are a tribal leader, please reach out to us. We're happy to have some conversation and help you get involved in this program as well. And that is correct. It's March 14th at 1:30 p.m. So 1 extra week for those tribal participants.
Great. It looks like the last question from the chat is from Barb. Who is responsible for sending and quantifying the responses of the survey? And I suppose I could take that, Gail. I don't know if you want to. So the Extension and PSC are working on pulling the survey together, and it is currently being set up via an electronic format, so Qualtrics, and it will be coming most likely from Extension, but in conjunction with the UW River Falls Survey Center. And there will be assistance. So this won't be a typical survey where you send it out and have people fill it out blindly. We will be acting as a resource to be able to answer any questions that might come up, because there may be some additional information that is needed. So in terms of who is responsible, will be coming from UW Extension. And then we will actually be pulling the information together and sharing that with PSC to be able to inform other planning. So Rory, I see that you unmuted again.
Yeah, I think kind of as a follow-up to what Brandon's saying, I think our vision and our hope for the survey is that when we send this out, each county will be responding to the survey once. And I think there's a goal here, and Extension is pioneering some of this work to bring together multiple folks from different parts of the county, maybe elected leaders or, chief information officers or whoever else is involved, to answer those questions and provide that information. It's kind of not just one person filling out the survey, but kind of on behalf of the county. So I think there will be a little bit of collaboration effort at the county level in compiling and filling out those responses to represent kind of the whole county as best as you're able. So I hope that helps give a little more context, but we will definitely be following up with a lot more information.
Then are there any more questions, either in the chat or if anybody cares to open mic? If not, I want to thank everyone who participated today in the second of our three-part series on broadband equity access and deployment BEAD funding for Wisconsin counties and tribes. As we noted earlier, a recording of this webinar will be posted on the Extension Community Economic Development website. Our next session in the series will be held on April 3rd at noon, Monday, April 3rd, the first Monday in April. At that time, we will discuss BEAD community planning timeline and resources to help achieve those goals. Watch for the registration announcement that will be coming out soon. Once again, thank you to our presenters, and we hope to see you all on April 3rd. Thank you. Bye-bye.